Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Catunquit Chronicles, which has been broadcast and developed here in the island of Catunquit in our studio. We acknowledge the custodians of the land where we are broadcasting from today, including the Narragansett Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm your host, James Allen, and I'm joined here most weeks, and this week by the extraordinary adventurer, extreme sport enthusiast, and all-around great gal, Ashland, Comorack.
Hello, Ashland. How was your weekend?
Wet.
Wet?
Wet.
Wet.
Very wet.
Why? Why was it wet?
Well, I was mountain biking in Arcadia. It was so wet that my pedals sometimes were in the water. Not great conditions. Sam Nipmuc dumped his bike when he hit a tree limb that floated into the path, messed up his shoulder. It was a great time.
Oh, you enjoy watching others in physical pain?
No, but I was able to use my medical kit for the first time. They need to be broken in, you know.
Sam or the kit?
He's too young for me. The kit. You know, you never know what's in there until you open it. I mean, there's a little sort of thing that tells you, but who reads that? So, yeah, you got to open it up, and it's pretty cool.
What did you do for Sam?
A sling, nothing crazy. He rode the rest of the 18 miles with one hand and one brake.
Did anyone suggest going back to the car when he was injured?
I didn't hear anyone saying that, but I was leading.
And if you did, what would you do?
Maybe hand out some ibuprofen.
You're
Honestly, I have a no whining policy, so.
You are hardcore. You're so hardcore.
I had planted into a tree about a month ago. Finished the ride. You never know what you're going to see. Can't miss stuff like that, James. Our days are precious.
Tell me about your day yesterday.
Not much. Woke up at 4:30 a.m. like always. Did the laundry, made some coffee, baked a pineapple upside-down cake because I needed the practice for company. And I went to Dave's Market shopping at 7.
So you bought some food and you're in line and you move your food through the process and you pay.
Yeah, I always bag the groceries so I can keep the cold stuff with the cold stuff and the veggies with the veggies and the pantry item cans and stuff.
I would have
together.
thought so. And what happened next?
More efficient. She said, "Have a good one."
What does that mean? The word one has 3 letters. Day has 3 letters. Why can't he or she just say the word day?
I don't think she meant anything by it.
That's the point. It hasn't any meaning, only implied meaning. It pisses me off. Was she telling me to have a good piss? Have a good one? Could she have said, have a good 2, take a good shit, or make a good shit? But I suppose it's already made, right? But then maybe it should be deliver a good 2.
I think you're getting a little worked up. It's just a thing.
But everyone says it everywhere, all the time. And they say, no problem. What is that? Why can't I have a problem? Why is everything initially considered a problem and therefore need assurance that there isn't to be an altercation? Why?
It's just a commonly used phrase.
My boss visited the Caribbean, I think it was Jamaica, on an all-inclusive spa type thing, and he returned saying, no problem, after every sentence, no matter what he was saying. It was what he was saying. He said, it was awful. Show some respect for the language. He'd say, I'm going to return those soccer balls to the trailer bin. No problem.
Did he also say it in a Jamaican accent?
No. He didn't say anything in Jamaican accent.
But you could, right?
I could, of course. I could do it. You want me to go back and go over that and really work that whole Jamaican thing? I don't think so. We're going to move. We're moving.
All right, what are we doing today other than complaining about stupid shit?
Well, it seems cruising is back in style. You know, cruise ships. They couldn't give the cruises away when everyone was dying on board a few short months ago, maybe even a year ago. Now they're crawling with their families into water parks on board. I heard an advertisement that said, we're an all-inclusive experience with water parks, pool, racket sports, including pickleball, live entertainment, and we've eliminated the casino. They eliminated the casino. That's the only intriguing part of the trip. You have to see if you could take the casino for the cost of the trip, right? So you could go in, you try to get some money out of the deal. So you try to come up even at least.
I don't cruise, and I don't go to casinos.
I should have known. Of course. Your idea of perfect vacation is a near-death caving experience that includes an underwater entrance and scuba diving in pitch-dark conditions while surrounded by electric eels and razor-sharp coral outcroppings that can slash an air hose at any moment. That's you.
That actually sounds really exciting. But I can chill out, too. No problem.
Yes, of course. Your idea of chilling out is doing chin-ups in your living room or watching documentaries about Tour de France bike racing in the Alps.
Are you looking at my windows again, James?
Not again. What are we going to do today?
Let's talk about stuff. You know, like topics.
Pick a topic.
If you were an insect, which one would you be and why?
I'd be a lobster.
A lobster's a crustacean.
But the fishermen call them bugs. What about you?
You missed the and why part.
Life is one big question, and it's usually why.
Being a boiled in a pot isn't cool.
No, not cool. It's freaking hot and boiling hot. Check that. I'll be a butterfly, specifically a monarch.
I'd be a worker bee.
I should have known. We are focused on me now. I'd love the flight to Mexico every year, though. You know, they stop in Catunquit to rest, and they must eat, too. I've seen thousands of them on a tree just hanging out like bats.
I'd like to see that.
You don't believe me? I have a picture. Really, Ashland. I'll find it. I'll show you. We need to get on to some real shit here. So I'll read this poem by a local poet. It's a prose poem.
What makes it a prose poem?
Well, it reads like a story, yet the form of the prose is briefer and formatted like a poem, you know.
What's it about?
A trip to a sweat lodge in Hope Valley, Rhode Island.
Ooh, what's a sweat lodge?
It's a place where indigenous people, but in this poem, they're... it's you know, let's just talk. You'll know after you listen to the poem.
Okay, it sounds cool.
It's wicked hot, actually, 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Some of this is explained in the poem. I'm going to read it now. We may have some special guests tonight to explain it further, but here goes. The we in this poem is my wife, Eva, and me, of course, James Allen. We participated in this sweat lodge as keepers of the fire last month. The name of this poem is Sweatlodge, and I wrote it. So it's not a pro poem. Real amateurish. Anyway, Sweatlodge. We arrived canvas-jacketed, jeans and leather boots, near open mines, wondering how long we could stay, to tend fire in the open air, stoke fire atop boulders, heat 48 grandfather stones at a sacred fire pit flanked by piled rocks, representing north, south, east, west, heated nearly molten red to produce spirit steam among those to be sharing in the sweat lodge, especially those 4-day fasted spirit souls seeking enlightenment. called by their leader, Many Feathers, from the hovels in the woods, as drum and song and chant an awakening forest of leafless maples and majestic oaks, where fire, heated rocks, and water meet, as Nipmucs have done for thousands of years at the Sweatlodge. As cloaked and hooded 4-day fasted spirit souls wander, called lovingly by Many Feathers, as gravity thrusts them down the hill naturally to smells of smoke and the heat of fire, Many Feathers leads through sound. Her gentle voice of reverence carries into windy treetops as she instructs us not to look fasted spirit souls in the eyes. I assume that their spirit is not ready to be shaken by man, their journey within not to be derailed. They cloister at the opening to the lodge, dressed in thin cotton, shoulders cave to conserve heat. Shrouded, they enter the darkened lodge, only legs and feet showing in the cramped space. Many Feathers calls, "Bring us 12 grandfathers," as we lift heated stones from red fire, dust the stones with rosemary branches, travel counterclockwise by the sacred bison skull at the altar outside the lodge, and bring them to the entry, as Many Feathers places them safely home, dousing grandfathers in sacred water. They call in unison, "Close it up! Close it up!" We leave pitchforks at the fire's edge and drape heavy curtains at the opening, darkening all. As we tend fire, sounds of singing and sighing call through from lodge. Testimony comes through matted walls, some in whispers, some testifying of their release and relief. Sounds mix above a sudden sizzle of heated steam, as plumes escape the lodge like gasps of old angst. We repeat 3 more times, until 48 stones that find their way into the lodge. Many Feathers called us to eat prepared foods at the lodge's edge, salmon and berries, just as bears eat. And finally, fasted spirit souls drink their first water, eat their first food, as plates passed hand to hand 7 times. Fasted spirit souls emerge from the lodge like salamanders from a log, their crusted eyes and drained bodies barely able to walk in this world. Yet they sought no help. Revived quickly, shrouded no more, they smiled, their spirits lifted, poisons purged, fears and apprehension blowing past in the wind like the last year's leaves. They dressed their muddy bodies in cold air, buttoned shirts clear to the neck. Many Feathers calls us again, her hand held drum beating new rhythms. She hums a Nipmuc. The drumming stops, and she holds Autumn Wind by the shoulders, looks in her eyes and explains. "Autumn Wind, you have 2 names. If you should accept this new name, you will be called Stormbringer." Autumn Wind, Stormbringer, accepted her new name. We waited in circle for Autumn Wind Stormbringer to greet us, and for the first time, and when it's my turn, I fumble through her name. She looks me in the eye lovingly and genuinely, seemingly long, looking straight through to my own soul, and thanked me for tending the fire. I said, "This was a meaningful experience for me. It must be so much more for you." She nodded her head and greeted the next fire tender. So now, that's the poem, Sweatlodge. A little bit about that experience more later, but we have a commercial spot right now, and we have to get into this commercial set. So I hope you enjoyed the poem. We'll talk more about that after the break. Brighten your day at All Hours Welding, where we keep the electrons coursing through the rods day and night. Call for a welding appointment. We fix anything. Campfire wood for sale. Just call 1-800-SAM-WOOD for all your fire needs. We sell it all. Kindling, cut and split wood, and we even sell waterproof matches because, after all, Catunquit is an island. Call Exterior Garage for all your automotive repairs this summer. We work hard to keep your vehicle running and you where you need to be. We work so much, we barely enjoy the summer months. Earliest Learning Center, where we start our students while they are still in the womb. Prenatal classes available. It never hurts to read a book to your child, even when they're growing in your belly. Jason's Drones. We put the in indiscretion as we navigate through the streets of Catunquit, 50 feet above all, to get the images you want of folks doing what they shouldn't be doing. We get the straight dope, one way or another, from swimming pool jumpers to petty theft to infidelity. We fly above it all. Our guests today are Malcolm Davidson and Cynthia Davidson, a.k.a. Many Feathers, and that would be Cynthia's Nipmuc name. Thank you both for visiting today. How should I refer to you, Malcolm? I prefer your name remains. Would it be Mal or Malcolm?
Malcolm's good, and my spirit name is Keeper of the Seven Fires.
I didn't know that. I thought I was the keeper of the 4 fires. You get 7?
I get 7, yes.
That is exceptional. 7 fires. Now, you were named that.
Yeah.
Did Many Feathers name you?
She did indeed, yes. That's 1 fire for every day of the week.
Was there anything like more to this than we know about? Because you are man and wife.
Indeed, the 7 fires actually represents the 7 directions.
Okay. Directions. You didn't say the other thing.
I did not. I said
Okay.
7 directions.
Okay. I want to be very
Keeping
clear about
the
that.
fire burning in the relationship every day of the week.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's right.
That's where I was going with it, and I was bringing it to sex, and you shouldn't do that. Okay. So that clarifies that. And what is it again?
The Keeper of the 7 Fires, and it's 7 directions. And the first direction is for Creator. Then we have the 4 directions, East, South, West, and North. And then we have 2 more, which is for Father Sky. And last one is Mother Earth.
Very well clarified. Thank you. There's something very beautiful about the fact that while we were keeping the fire, that we were very cognizant of direction. We're going to talk about that more. But I was very aware for like the first time in my life for a long. Well, I can be aware sometimes, but I can be very, very distracted, as both of you know, or all 3 of you know. So, I wanted to get there. I got to ask, Many Feathers. Did the poem accurately describe a fire tender's responsibilities?
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job, especially since it was your first time. That was Malcolm's first job when we went to Canada, to our teachers, to our ceremonial leaders up there. Remember what your first time was?
I remember it very well.
I have to ask this because every time I've described this, in fact, I spent some time today describing what I was going to do tonight to my sisters. I was having lunch with my sisters, and they really didn't get figured out. Maybe they were distracted because we were at a restaurant, but they were trying to understand. But they really got hung up on the 4 days, no food or water.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the words were, "Are they crazy?"
Yeah. Well, I remember when I did my first 4-day fast, and Malcolm was worried that I wouldn't survive it. Are you crazy? Of course, after my first 4-day fast, all I wanted to do was, let's do that again. I think these ways would not have survived if they didn't work. But nobody in their right mind should try to do a 4-day fast and live in the crazy man-made world. When you do a 4-day fast ceremonially, you're out in the woods. There's no phones. There's no meals to cook. There's no news. You're just in the woods. You give 1 day to each direction. You sleep, you dream, you notice which animals come and from what direction. Of course, it helps to interpret all this if you study the medicine wheels and the sacred circles, which are maps of consciousness. There are many layers. A wheel is not just a flat thing. It's multidimensional. So if you're going to enter that kind of ceremonial space, some people try to take a shortcut with ayahuasca or something, but unless you can integrate what you get when you have a vision or even a trip, that's what the hippies used to call it, then it isn't going to be useful to the people, because usually when you're going out for a fast, it's for a vision quest is to bring something back for the people. So when you saw those fasters coming in your poem, they had gone up on the hill as part of the bear fast, which is a little bit different from a vision quest. A vision quest usually is solo. And a lot of the reason why Native people created this kind of a ceremony was they lived collectively. They were never really alone. So for a young man or a young woman to go up on the hill alone with a buffalo robe, that's it, until the spirits come. And there's a story of a medicine woman. She put her daughter out. It took 12 days for the spirits to come. And in the modern world, we would call it a psychotic break, because suddenly you are seeing and hearing things. You're on a different channel. Somebody that fasts that long is allowed to have water. The longest someone stayed on our property was 7 days, waiting for that experience. But if you don't live in a community that helps integrate these things, Black Elk, a great Lakota Sioux leader, he actually had a vision from having a fever when he was a young boy. But in the vision, he saw things, and he told his tribe about this, and they reenacted all of that. So in the old days, this was not sort of a bucket list thing that you checked because it was trendy. You
think it is now? That there are a percentage of people that are putting themselves through this experience because they think it's cool?
Well, I think there's a big spiritual hunger, and
yeah,
older indigenous people who remember, sadly, one of the biggest spiritual communities in Canada and even in the United States for indigenous people is prison. Some people never went to a Sweatlodge. Full-blood people, because their parents were dragged off to residential schools. They had their hair shaved off and forced to sing Christian hymns and beaten by the nuns and priests and other terrible things. 50,000 of them in Canada never came home, and they're still finding their...
You mentioned Canada.
Yes.
Now, that's one of my questions, and that was about where the tribe, Nipmuc tribe, is encompassed. Where's the range?
That's very important. Our teachers are actually Micmac and Blackfoot. In the Sundance ceremonies that we went to for 13 years in New Brunswick, Canada, in a reserve called Elsipogtog, at the Sundance we had Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, all kinds of people, Crow, Cree,
Micmac.
And Micmac. Our teacher of the White Eagle Sundance, our Sundance chief leader, is William J. Nevin, who is Micmac.
Well, let's just, we got to take a poke at me right now. I'm going to self-deprecate here a little bit, because I was the keeper of the fire, but I was really keeping the fire for Nipmucs. Sorry.
That's okay, because they have lived around here.
I know. I think they're in Attleboro.
I think it's
as close as Attleboro.
Yes.
Or even Rhode Island, parts of Rhode Island.
And a lot of parts of Connecticut. One of our good friends, Anna, she is part Nipmuc.
But Micmac is from, the people are from Canada. Is that
And
correct?
Maine.
And Maine.
And Maine, even cooler. Wow.
Yeah, Presque Isle, all those places.
Well,
They were
Canada's
all
cool too.
all over here. I mean, there wasn't a United States, there wasn't a Canada. The border moved, not the people were. The Micmacs have been around for a long time.
But these groups they're overlapping with other tribes that we're more familiar with.
Yes, yes. And because the East Coast was colonized earlier than the West Coast, some of the Western tribes still have more of their traditions and things. But the East Coast folks, sadly, perished of smallpox and other venereal diseases, unfortunately. We don't talk about that as much as the smallpox and things. But so back to the point of the spiritual hunger of modern people, you can't just sort of Band-Aid it. The context that something like a Sweatlodge comes out of or a Vision Quest, it's difficult to just patch it on to a modern person who lives on a laptop and things, because some of them are actually scared to be out in the woods overnight. They have no literacy. They wouldn't know what poison ivy looked like.
I do
so
know that.
This is another challenge for modern people. But the wonderful thing about these ceremonies, as a Native people taught us, you want the connection to spirit, go out and get it. You don't delegate your spiritual development to some guy standing in a pulpit in the front of the room passing a collection plate.
Yeah.
You want to know? Don't swallow secondhand spit. Get out there and make your connection.
Wow. Can we repeat that? Don't swallow secondhand spit. Oh, wow.
That's actually-
I know that the water that you used when you put it on the stones
Yes.
that created the steam was clean water, and you were insisting upon that.
Yes.
I have to ask a couple of questions that are all pertaining to this. As these dedicated souls came down, and I hope I described that well in the poem, where they came down the hill, and there's I had a reverence for you at that moment that I've always revered you, but that moment was powerful for me. I cried, and these people were walking down this hill, and I don't know. Then you shrouded them,
Yes.
and I want to know why.
Well, even in the Sundance, we have porta potties because there's like 80 dancers. There's a lot of people. And we cover the mirrors because when your spirit is growing, your eyes are so big and you are seeing more. And so you're in a vulnerable state too. So part of keeping them shrouded is until after we're finished, because we want to honor the stories that they earned in the teachings. When you give up everything, you give up your bed, you give up your hairbrush, you give up bathing, you give up your toothbrush, you give up everything to go sit in the woods, and you've made the space for something to come to you. If you want healing, as William would say, he's a wonderful healer, he would say, what are you going to give up? How is the healing going to have a place to land if you don't give up the cigarettes, if you don't give up the booze, if you don't give up the gambling?
Are there stages, though, of understanding? Because there's got to be some pain in the beginning, right? So you're still in this world, right, with the computers and the screens and all that stuff. And then you go, you make this decision, then you're in this tent, and you're alone, and there's got to be like this moment of doubt.
Oh, yeah, a lot of moments of doubt. That's why you're out there. Because even in the Sundance, while you're dancing, and I remember one year of the 12 years that I danced, it was like 112 degrees. And
Wait a minute, let's back up.
Yeah.
12 years?
12 years Sundancing.
And then
Yes.
you were permitted to be a leader.
After the first 4 years of dancing with no food and water, you're fasting in May, you're fasting in October, 4 days each time, then you're dancing in July. Because if your body isn't already used to going without the food and water, you can't add the dance on top of that. And being in the sun all
Wow.
day.
So, I had a few nights at Lupo's where I danced for maybe 3 hours, but that was about it, back in the day. But those are when I had, a lot more hair and I was a lot more attractive. However, okay, keep going. I just had to interlude with some
Again,
humor.
One of the difficulties of talking about ceremony, it's always much better to participate because it's
Oh, well, Ashland's definitely doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, she's all over this
Well,
kind of thing.
yeah, I think we should back up and say, how did you even get involved in this, Jay?
Well, I was asked by my friend here, many
Keeper of the Seven
Keeper of the
Fires.
Seven
Fires.
to be a firekeeper and to assist the firekeeper that was attending. And when I mentioned it to my wife, Eva, she said, I'm all over it. Let's do it. Let's go and do it. But we knew nothing. Sometimes ignorance is good, though, right? But we knew nothing going in. And I feel like we still probably know little about what people really experienced. But I feel like I got this much better understanding.
Yes.
Oh, I did have to ask about Malcolm's gasping. There was a lot of gasping from you. And, I used Malcolm, sorry, Keeper of the Seven Fires.
Yeah.
You were gasping. Is that, I'm not making fun of you, but I was shocked. I was concerned at the time.
I am extremely audible with my physical experiences. So I huff and puff when I'm walking up the hill.
Okay.
But
when
actually,
we're playing golf.
And playing golf. Yeah.
Another in the woods. I put it into the barn.
That's right.
It's awful.
Exactly. So let me just interject and tell you something as an Englishman about this whole experience. When I was a child, and we would play cowboys and Indians back in the 50s, and whether you want to be an Indian or a cowboy, whatever, and then you'd have the good guys and the savages. Well, when I learned a lot more about the history of the USA, and I learned about the native ways and the indigenous people, the idea of who is exactly the savages. And I would say that we will reverse those roles, and the native people, I think of all the messages that I could learn from native elders, native people, is the very, very simple. One of the phrases that that we learned is Omsit Nogama, which means we are all related, all my relations. And the idea when I take the dog for a walk, I'm walking down and I see the birds, or I see the tree or squirrels, I feel a connection, because the native, it's an essence of the elemental, we are all related. And Cynthia Many Feathers mentions you need to get out in nature. So people are walking around without that connection, and they don't understand we are all related. So people feel alienated, people feel alone. And so there's a lot to learn from nature, Mother Earth, and the indigenous teachings.
You started by saying that as an Englishman. Do you still regard yourself as an Englishman, or do you feel like you've assimilated into this society?
I have assimilated, and I am 100% Yankee.
Even if you do
Very
sound
good.
like a Brit.
You
But
do
you
sound.
came here when you were 30 years old. So
Yeah. Hey, 30 years old and 40 pounds. Like we all have.
Yes.
Okay, so when you're in the Sweatlodge and it's 130 degrees and it's very small, it's very dark, that's the part that gets me a little concerned. Is there discussion within the Sweatlodge about like things like how much you sweat, or are there any, like, you get through some like mechanics of it all while you're in there, or is it all spiritual? Because some people may be just freaking out. It's freaking hot in here.
well, just like the medicine wheels, the structure of the ceremony is very well defined. So the East door is the first round, and all the things of the East, and the songs, the prayer songs, the medicine songs for the East are sung. We pray for instance, it's the place of the warriors and the masculine energies in the way that I was taught.
So very specific
Very
prayers.
specific prayers for each direction.
Okay,
And it's sort of to honor so we always pray for people to graduate from military warriorship and carrying a gun to spiritual warriorship and carrying a pipe, where they would never kill anybody to be a man. So it's a little bit, the whole ceremony is like a container for transformative energies. And that's why every lodge is different, even though the structure of the four doors of the four directions is the same. The people who are present and the spirits that come when we're singing and calling are always different. And when the door shuts for me in the lodge, suddenly it's vast. It's huge to me when the door shuts in the dark.
Unlike what I said.
Unlike the claustrophobia, it's just vast.
But you can't see anything.
Well, you can open your eyes. You see the glowing stones in front of you.
Oh.
Actually, everybody that sits in each direction, the
That's
men
a little
are
better.
on one side, the women are on others. The oldest go in first. If you're praying about a problem you're having with your daughter, or you're praying for your grandmother who's in hospital hooked up to life support system or whatever, you're going to see the designs and symbols inside the stones from your angle. I may not see that you're seeing the shape of a bear in the stones. So it's like nature is speaking to you. You are really tuned in because you've left the man-made world. I mean, the other beauty of this ceremony is at the level of fire, doesn't matter what language is in, it's absolute. Fire is fire, water is water, rocks are rocks. We're past arguing about who read whose book and whose label or whatever. You know? That's another thing that why I think Indigenous ceremonies are so important. They're honoring what's...
I'm going to pray for you to stop coughing.
They're honoring what's in common.
I started with a cough today, too. As things progressed while you're inside, and things you're suggesting that it's a greater space.
Yes.
You know, for someone that's as claustrophobic as I am, I enjoyed being in the outside. I did.
And your work on the outside made us have a good lodge on the inside.
Yeah.
I think
I wanted to go back to a point you made about the eyes, because even after the ceremony was over, I don't think I'd ever been looked at in that manner by anyone ever. The four people looked you straight in the eye, and their eyes were this wide open. It was amazing when we were permitted to look at the folks. So I have to ask a quick question about Micmac. How big a tribe is this? Like, how many people are in the Micmac tribe?
I would say maybe 5,000.
Wow.
Remember, there's been a lot of intermarriage. So not only with other tribal members, but the Métis people, the mixed people. Don't forget, I know on the reserve in Canada where we have the Sundance, a lot of the Catholic people in the surrounding New Brunswick community, if their daughter got pregnant out of wedlock, they maybe were ashamed and they would put the baby with the Micmac people. They would leave babies, infants, on the doorsteps of Micmac homes because they knew
This
they
is
loved families.
Time ago, not now.
Not so long ago.
Wow.
So you'll go to a Micmac reserve, they call them reserves there, not reservations, and you see these blonde-haired, blue-eyed people that can speak the language, and they're completely Micmac upbringing, but they are 100% French, Canadian maybe. So there's been a lot of intermarriage and mixing, so it's hard to count the people. Are we counting full-bloods? I know that Keith Chiefmoon and Karen Russell, when they come, they sponsored the Micmac Sundance that we are trained in and very honored to participate in. And they live on a full-blood reserve in Alberta, Canada, and they're all full-blood people there. But again, the English and the French moved west.
Yeah, it seems
slowly.
like the farther west you go, the more likely you're to see native people who look the way you expect them to look.
Yes, because these ceremonies, don't forget, until the Carter administration, Native people were not allowed to practice their ceremonies. The Sundance, the sweat lodges, you were fined and you went to prison for that.
Oh,
Even
my.
if you were on your reserve or reservation?
Yes, the Sundances were prohibited because they were afraid that the Native population would get too powerful. They wanted to Christianize them. So here in the United States, I was raised to believe that we're all about religious freedom. Yeah, except for the First Nations people that were here before we were.
That's shocking.
It is
Is there a ceremony that like we witnessed the other day happening on tribal lands, the reserves somewhere each week now, or is it every
Yes.
month, or is it like you do with every month?
Well, our teacher, William Nevin, helps to run the Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center on the reserve in Elsipogtog in New Brunswick. And a lot of Native people remember poverty and persecution and drugs and all the evils of the over society are there too, sadly. And sometimes, like I said earlier, the first time they've really heard about their Native ways is when they were in jail. But William believes in a spiritual recovery model. So how do you recover a person's spirit, not just detox them from drugs?
Oh, so this was one of my next questions, because so you led right into it. Is enlightenment the goal for the participant, or is it a purging of toxins? That's question E.
Well, I think each individual comes with their own traumas and need for healing. And so even though there is a sort of contextual spiritual recovery, as we would call it, each person responds differently. So some people literally, let's use the sweat lodges for examples. Some people in Canada or even here in the U.S., in places where the lodges are offered, they might, again, you don't pay for these ceremonies. This is another thing
I was going to go to there,
really
but yeah.
important. So it's not like you're buying something. You are going there to try to open yourself up for something to come to you that you cannot control. You have to put yourself in that vulnerable state, and maybe it will come, maybe it won't in that particular ceremony. But the relationship to the person who's running the ceremony and the other people who are present in the ceremony has a lot to do with the results.
I saw that, and I thought that you had a wonderful presence, which is everything in a lot of walks of life. That's such an important thing. You have presence, and you showed a level of respect and caring for these people, and as you should, right? They're on your property, and they're those are all the logical things that my brain sometimes goes to, but it was well beyond all the mechanics of it all, like keeping them healthy enough to be ready to receive these kinds of spiritual gifts. So I thought that I was going to ask Malcolm, was Cynthia a good student when she was going through the training? Do you know?
Yes, she was, and she continues to be a good student.
Oh, that's a good quality, isn't it?
Yeah,
You need to continue to be a student.
Yeah, and of course, there's an old phrase, which is the teacher arrives when the student is ready.
Oh.
And I think that is a good statement for all of us. But I just want to respond to your question about enlightenment for a second.
Yes.
For me, I think the Native American teachings and ways, including the Sweat Lodge and the Sundance and other things, is all about what I would say would be integration. And I mean the integration of the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit. And I grew up in a family where both my mother and father's spirits were broken. And so they each had very different responses to that spirit, their spirits being broken. And so part of my journey with the Native American, what we call the Red Road, is to integrate and reconnect to my spirit. And that truly would be, for me, that would be part of the journey towards enlightenment.
Reconnect with the spirit.
And,
Okay.
and I would never be presumptuous to say that I feel enlightened. It is an ongoing journey, and I will always do that until the day I take my last breath.
Well, let's make sure that that is a long time from now because you have a lot of golf to play. Please explain the significance. I'm going to go over here again with many feathers. As fire tender, I was asked to notice animals and birds of all types, and more specifically, what direction they were traveling in. And I understood somewhat why you were interested in animals and birds. The direction part is really what my question is about.
Yeah. Well, if an eagle is flying toward the lodge from the east, that is a little bit like the compass. You want to remember the significance of what the animals are showing you. So if you think of the medicine wheels as the compasses, when you would give your 4 days to 1 day to each direction, you may see a fisher cat, or you may see a hawk. You may some animal may come and check on you. There may be an owl each night. There's a connection back to this Umset Nogama. We are all related. This has to be lived. It's not just something you read about in a book. You go out there and you don't know which animals are going to come for you.
Right.
So just like when the fasters ask me to put them out.
Important point that we need to make is that not all the members of the Sweatlodge group had fasted. The people that were participating, that were supporters there as well, yes. And those supporters had some requirements too. They weren't to drink alcohol or any kind of substances for 2 days or more. 4 days prior to the 4 days for directions, of course.
Yeah, and the supporters themselves had already done a bear fast too. The spring equinox is when we celebrate the fact that the bears are coming out of hibernation.
Yes.
And a lot of people who work with, let's say, with the body, massage people, other kinds of counselors and things, they need to learn from the bear's example of to hibernate, to stop, to take a rest, so.
That's a very solitary experience.
Well, if your cup is empty, how are you going to give any more to people? And in our society, because we're raised in sort of industrially planned schools that got us ready for factories, we're not machines. We need to get back to nature's rhythms. So the lunar cycle is very important. And people that live a ceremonial life are constantly realigning themselves with nature. Not trying to push water uphill.
To that point, and I want to just interject a second here. I have a real understanding of tides, as a fisherman, and wind speed, wind direction, and waves. And I feel at my best when I'm there.
Yeah, you're cellular.
In that world.
Your cells.
Yes.
It's home.
I did a brief spell on one of the sailing vessels, and Ashland's one of the sailors that sails on Tuesday nights. And I never sailed on Ashland's boat because she's so aggressive, my God. She actually, she'll cross over next to a boat. It's about a foot from the boat, But anyway, that said, I was on another very aggressive boat, and I didn't contribute much more than bringing the stuffed quahogs each week, and I could grind those, things and bring the sails in. But I did have a sense of when there was going to be wind and tides. I knew that stuff. And they actually did call on me for this one little bit of information, if we were becalmed, So I had a purpose when I was sailing. I didn't last long. I was going to beg of you, maybe that I know you don't have your drum today, but that's okay. I was hoping that we could learn, Ashland, myself, and I know Malcolm can sing. I was hoping that you would teach us just a few lines from a song from the Micmac.
All right. This is actually a Cherokee welcome song, and it's nice to welcome our listeners too. And we have a Cherokee friend, Dave, who wasn't able to be there. He works for the post office, so he wasn't there when you were fire attending, but he's one of our regulars, he and his wife, Kelly. And the song that I was singing on the drum when I was bringing the fasters down is a welcome song. So it's window, yeah, ho.
Window, yeah, ho.
Window, yeah, ho.
Window, yeah, ho.
Window, yeah, window, yeah.
Hey, 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 oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. I remember this.
One more time.
Window, yeah, oh. Window, yeah, oh. Window, yeah, window, yeah. Hey, 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 oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. That's beautiful. That was the song.
Yeah.
It brought tears to my eyes.
So each of those people that asked me to put them out for those fasts, I reminded them when they give me tobacco, because they don't pay me for this. You can't buy this stuff. It's precious beyond money. I remind them, if you're promising creation that you're going to give 4 days of your life for the messages and the dreams and the things, the vision that you need, if you are out there and you can't do it, let's say day 2 you had a nightmare, or I can't do this anymore, I'm on the hook. I have to go out in your tent and finish those days that you promised.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's part of the relationship. When you said I had presence,
Yes.
I'm very invested.
They
in
know
their
that
success.
you're there for them.
And I never accept to put somebody out who thinks it's going to be easy. The people who come and say, I'm scared, I'm not sure I can do it, they always do. They make it. But the ones that, I'm an ex-Marine, I can, we sponsored a guy at the Sundance. He lasted 2 days.
So you have had to go and finish out somebody's.
Oh, no, that one time in the Sundance, we had one person. That was a good lesson to me. But I never have put somebody out on a fast that didn't finish. Thank
So you're a
goodness.
good judge of.
Well, spirit helps us. I mean, I dream of these people. I receive the names, the spirit names for them. I've named a lot of people over the 20 plus years we've been doing this, and I don't know how the names come. Sometimes we pass newborns and their names come, willing the sun to rise, evening the tides, little Eva. How do they come? It's partly because Sweatlodge is a purification ceremony. So the more you get rid of all the stuff, the clearer you are. It's like being a hollow bone, as Hafez and Rumi talk about, or Frank Fool's Crow talks about, be a hollow bone, be a hollow reed. That's what purification is, so that you're not all hung up on ego and judging, and then they can get through you, and things come through you, and you go, wow, that wasn't your ego mind. Like Stormbringer, that name came to me. I had a woman up the hill before that was also in this.
Shit stirrer, I call her.
Kim Callinghawk. Her name came, Callinghawk came to me when I had her up on the hill, because she was up on a 48-hour fast for a Vision Quest, which is different from a 4-day group fast, a bear fast. So there are different kinds of fasts. So often for people, the first fast is just 24 hours. Up there in the woods, it can be in a time of year where you don't have to tend a fire because it's not snowing and raining, and just to unplug for 24 hours is to give yourself that time to just be you without all the crazy inputs and the internet and phone. You'd be surprised.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, what you can heal just by being alone and at rest, like deep cellular regeneration, and not to be afraid to be out there.
I have to move to a commercial here.
Yes.
I'm gonna read a poem that I find that might actually complement what we've been talking about.
Good.
But I just should note that Catunquit Chronicles has been brought to you by Catunquit Schools. the volunteer fire department, and several members of the writing group Delinquent Scribes, a group of writers plying their trade at the adult correctional institution. Okay, so the name of this poem, and see if you can identify some of these moments that we've been discussing. This doesn't have anything to do with sweat lodges. But I brought some native concepts in here, I think. I hope that you appreciate it. And I'm the poet this time, so once again, keeping the prose away from the prose poem. In Providence and Willie the Whale. As we crossed Washington Bridge headed to Providence, Rhode Island's Oz, in 1965 when I was 5, Father spoke of Willie the Whale while we rode in our wide Chevy Impala on our way to Sears, the only store on earth. I looked for Willie beneath the bridge, along the river's edge, from the highway overpass. I searched amidst the remains of wooden piers, twisted, worn pylons stabbing ripply surface water. At low tide, Providence's only tide. I'm talking about the old city, before Venetian gondolas and floating bonfires. It's other time, after John Kennedy was assassinated time. It's let's fight the communists wherever time. It's narrow, dirty streets time. Mafia-driven crime time. America-wide, blind-eyed time. A time when Providence's only other fame, trivial claim to be the widest bridge. City built on a giant wharf of native red oaks and white oaks, hewn from dark native forests, after Roger Williams named it Providence. Fortune. His fortune, native Narragansett's improvidence. I looked for Willie in the Providence River, adjacent Narragansett's electric power plant, only owned by rich white industrialists, enriched by their generated electrons and their cruel theft of a sacred moniker, oxymoronically dubbed Narragansett Electric. Roger Williams was an ambassador, a New World charlatan bent on devious negotiation, ignorant of ancient culture, for he failed to follow the stone, granite piled and stacked, connecting still wooded woods, or to see ancient Manitou stone and summer oyster shell piles, or to hear the beat of drums, the thump of dancing feet. Ignored, stolen. For this 5-year-old, Narragansett Electric's, with its hellish arched windows, reached for a deadened sky, alit like Satan's church, its bowels exposed, generators generating infinitum, stacks billowing airborne sludge, oblivious of any future, any past, sooted skies, its only present. At the water's edge, the building held a faux shoreline, where ill-treated sewer water slipped beneath native stumpy oaks, altered river pus water, headed to mysterious ratty places under the widest bridge. The Narragansett Electric Plant remained, a stationary monster to my eye, spewing heated water from cooled combustion turbines into brackish reaches at the head of a dying river, once pregnant with salmon, Narragansett tribal salmon, that swum upstream unimpeded before dam industrialists. Willie the Whale appeared in 1962. A female pilot whale. She visited for 4 days, purged and fed in heated fish-filled waters on lost giant balls of frantic baitfish. Willie was corralled by bridges and barriers, flotsam and plastic sewage-laced waste, boats and gawkers, silhouetted attraction hawkers, and white mothers in paisley skirts pushing white baby strollers, towing white toddlers, holding white noses to glimpse Willie the Whale. History and humanity amassed on Providence's bridges and sludgy shores until Willie grounded on a salt-filled flat, where here she finally died. I'm 64 now. I still look for her.
That's so sad.
It's true. It all happened. And it is sad. We lost a pilot whale.
But I fear that it is a metaphor for what we're doing with the earth these days.
Oh, so it is. Yes, it is. It is a metaphor. It was an intended metaphor by the poet, but it's reality, isn't it? It's our reality.
Yep.
So we have to do something about that. It's Earth Day almost. It was 2 days ago, I presume, and we could go out and fix things and clean things and do things better and not maybe we don't take that plastic bag, or maybe we don't need any extra cutlery when we go to restaurants. Anyway, that's said. So that's thank you for both of you for being here today. My great friends in the world here. Keeper of the 7 fires and many feathers. Thank you very much. Ashland, it's always a pleasure to hang with you. Do you have, we have some things we need to talk about, right?
Do we?
We hope you listen again real soon. I have to say that. And then in the next episode, we explore Catunquit's undefinable beauty with some real estate questions for local realtors.
Do you have some guests in mind?
No, I don't think we're going to do that. I think that sounds like a terrible idea. I think we're going to do something else because this was such a great podcast. We can't follow it up with realtors. Although I have many friends that are realtors that are just waiting for me to sell my home and get the big check.
I bet.
So I wish you all well out there in podcast world. Thanks for being a part of this today. Catunquit Chronicles. Tell your friends. Bye.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.